Hello. Just want to drop in and say two quick things before the episode starts. First, I want to give a content warning. This episode is my brother and I talking about the deaths of both of our fathers. So this is about death and grief. And if that content is triggering to you, probably want to sit this one out. That is all we're talking about. We also do briefly talk about suicide. So just be aware of that. I will say, although the content is a heavy subject, I will say the tone of the conversation is pretty light. I don't think you need to break out like the tissue box for the conversation. It's a pretty light in tone, which I appreciate. When I wanted to make an episode about grief, I couldn't find one that really had somebody in my same situation, which is why I wanted to make one myself. And this episode, I love it so much. And I feel like it's really the kind of episode I wish I could have found right after my dad died. So I hope you guys like it. Big thank you to my brother for finding the time to do this. Thank you to you guys for being patient. This is my second attempt at making this episode. So thank you for being patient. The first one is never going to get released, but I really, really love this one and I'm really proud of it. So I hope you enjoy. Bye. Okay. Thank you guys for coming back to listen to another episode. I have a super, super special guest today.
I'm one special, not two, three.
This is my brother, technically my half brother, but I never call you that. I don't.
I think it's rude. I mean,
Yeah.
facts are facts, but yeah, if you introduce somebody as like your half sibling, then people are like, "Oh, you guys don't mess with each other at all."
Yeah, I feel like that means you like don't love them like
Yeah.
that. um, Devin or Tyler, which one would you like to be?
You know, let's go with Tyler, just because for part of me almost went with my first name, but I was like, I kind of like that you can't get anything on me if you Google that. Whereas Tyler, I don't love the first couple of things that come up, but
But there's probably a ton of Tyler Richardsons. Like,
there are. Although I will say, I think the main one used to be a real estate guy. None of them were doing anything with it. Every now and again, a soccer player or something will hit me up, but I took a lot of pride in being like one of the first Tyler Richardson, but you had to put comedy behind it.
okay, cool. So then Tyler Richardson comedy is my guest today. And today we are talking about grief. So we are 13 years apart. I'm 27. You're about to be 40. How do you feel about that?
I've never really felt bad about aging, and I think I've started to treat myself a little bit better the older that I get. So I feel good. Hopefully, I'll just be able to run after my son and give him the that he needs.
Well, you don't look a day over 36. You look
Thank
great.
you. 36. But yeah, I know I don't look as young as I used to. You've still got the glow of 20s on you, but
Thank you. But yeah, we have the same mom. Mom was married to your dad.
if you blink, you missed it. I don't know how long they were married. I know that my first memories, they were already separated. And
Yeah.
yeah, I remember them trying to work it out a couple of times, but yeah, that's what happens when you get married really young. Kids don't marry at 21. It's not a good decision.
Yeah, it's really dumb. Well, so then she wasn't married to my dad at all, ever. I hear that they were in love at some point.
They were great together as from the eyes of a child. A lot of the details weren't given to me. Well, I'm sure she didn't give me a lot, but details weren't given to me until a lot later. But yeah, they were very happy, and I looked at your dad like a father figure, and I would have bet my life that he was going to be on paper my dad because we were all really close.
Wow. So both of our dads passed away. My dad died December 2021. He had COVID, which probably would not have killed him had he not had so many prior health problems. But he did, so it did.
Did he get vaccinated? Was he allowed?
Yeah, he was vaccinated, but he had a collapsed lung in the past. He had a heart transplant. He had a lot of prior problems.
Yeah, that's
So,
not, but I'm glad that he was not like, I'm not gonna put that in my body. I'm glad he had the sense to go get the shot.
yeah. And your dad committed suicide, correct?
He did. That was, and I don't know how I forget. It was April 22nd, 2011. And I always remember it because it's 2 days after 420. That's a horrible way to remember it, but normally makes it a lot quicker for me to pull that date up.
Mm-hmm. And your dad was 50?
So just being totally transparent, I don't know when his birthday is. Now,
What?
I think, because I know we're going to get into how close we were. Don't you guys go jumping the gun. No, we weren't that close. But I think I put it on my calendar just so that I would remember as I quickly raced to it. Now, I think his birthday was the 16th. It
April
was 12th.
16th?
No, it was December 12th. What day
Okay.
did your father die?
My dad died December 7th. I always think it's the 8th because I found out the next day. No one told me until the next day. His birthday was April 24th. I learned as an adult. I just asked him, like, "Oh, when's your birthday?" But yeah, December 7th, 2021, he died.
Did you get him something for his birthday after you asked him, or did you just
No.
ask him? Okay, just
I
making sure.
don't think he told me because I don't think he wanted to risk me calling him and like other people knowing that I exist
No.
because other people did not know. But we'll get into that
Why?
later.
That's my side piece. Next question.
Okay. So let's start from the beginning. What was your relationship like with your dad growing up?
My father was very strict, typical military dude. I didn't even know he was like military police until around the time he died. So he came off like that. Like he wanted me to say yes, sir. I remember that. Except for there was a time because I guess he was trying to be cool, or he felt like there was a really big distance between us. And he was like, "Oh, if you want, you can call me by my first name." And I was like, "Okay, not really gonna do that." So we're at this basketball game, and I'm trying to get his attention, and I can't. And I'm like, "Dad, Daddy, Dad, Harvey." And then I just scream the biggest Harvey, and like everybody turns around, and he's like, "What'd you call me?" And I was like, "Dad, I said it like 8 times." Um, and I remember that day, and it I think sums up our relationship pretty good because I want to preface this with our relationship when he died was my fault. Um, but I think I was angry at him for a long time, and he tried to call. He did what he needed to do as far as like money, but one time we went from LA to Las Vegas, which is like an 8 hour ride, did not speak. That's going and coming back, 16 hours. We did not speak. He just played the Above the Rim soundtrack. He played Jamie Foxx's first album, which is classical piano music and his voice, way before Blame It on the Alcohol. And he played Blackstreet's album with No Diggity on it. The three of those just kept in rotation the entire time, both ways. But I think he tried to be the best father that he could. I was just a little too young and too immature and irresponsible once I was an adult because he really put forth a lot of effort. And I just took a big old nasty one all over all his love and left it there like, I'll come back to it when I'm older. Maybe when I have a kid, we'll try to figure this all out again. What about you?
So my dad and I, when I was growing up, I would say when I was in elementary school up to middle school, I saw him a little bit every once in a while. I have such fuzzy memory of that time. I don't know how often it was, but I know that probably until I was like 11, that's when I saw him the most, which was not that often, but that was like the most regular time that I saw him from
Did he
11 to
come
16.
over?
Hmm?
Did he come over after I had already left?
I don't ever remember him coming to the house, but I know that mom and I would meet him particularly at the Silver Diner in Springfield. And we would just sit across from each other and talk. And it was awkward trying to build a relationship with someone at a restaurant, someone that you were supposed to really know, that was your dad. But I don't know, we never had a great bond like that. From 11 to 16, didn't see him at all. At 16, he was around a little bit while we were car shopping. And then I think something happened between him and mom. I don't know exactly what. No one tell me anything. I feel like being the
Wait,
youngest.
mom hasn't talked to you about why she feels like she does about your dad?
Yes, but I don't feel like I know the complete full story of everything. I know bits and pieces, you know.
I know
So
bits and
16,
pieces. We'll see if I fill in some gaps later on.
right. So then from 16 to 22, don't see him at all. I heard from him when I was 20, but didn't see him again until I graduated from college. I sent him a graduation announcement, and then he called me afterwards and I met up with him, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, I've been going through it. Like, I'm about to get a heart transplant. I've been really sick." And I was like, I don't believe you. And he literally like lifted up his shirt in the middle of Barnes and Noble and showed me like the scar and told me this whole story of how sick he's been. And I was like, why didn't you tell me? And then I asked him, where were you my whole entire childhood? And, he basically gave a bunch of excuses of like, I figured you'd just be better off without me. And I was like, okay, sure. And I wasn't really interested in rebuilding. I wouldn't say rebuilding, but building a relationship at that time. And around the time that he died, um, he before we started recording, I told you he got the lease for the BET building in DC and was starting a
Shout out
production.
to the BET building.
And he was starting a production company and wanted me to be a part of it. And, he invited me up and walked me around. And I was like, wow, this is really the building. And you really have it. And I was ready to see if we could, revisit things. And then I just asked him, like, does Malcolm know about me? Malcolm is his son. I was like, does Malcolm know about me? And he was like, yes and no. And I was like, what is that? What does that
I'd
mean?
love to know what that means.
Exactly. And he was like, he has an idea that someone is there or someone exists, but he doesn't know for sure. And I'm like, your son doesn't know that you have another child? And I was like, do your parents know? And he was like, well, my mom passed away, but my dad doesn't know. And I just started realizing, like, oh, wow, I'm a secret in your life.
Now,
Like,
can we stop right there for a second?
yeah,
I don't know that I've ever had something negative to say about your father. As a man, though, he did some dastardly cold shit. Do you know the story of how I found out that mom was pregnant with you?
no.
You know, okay, so she comes in one day. She goes, I'm tired. And you know how mom is. She's like leaning on a counter, taking forever to get to the end of her statement. And she's like, I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm like, I heard you say that. And she's like, and I'm pregnant. And I was like, come again? And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, are you and Mr. Whitfield gonna get married or what's happening? And she's like, no, he doesn't want to have a baby. And I was like, okay, so you're still going to have it anyway. I don't even think I knew. No, I did know about abortion. But I was like, you're still going to have it anyway, even though he doesn't want to have it. And she's like, yeah. And yeah. But I look back at that, especially as somebody given basically the same decision to make when I was 35. I could never, like, I made it very clear to the women that I had dated how I felt about abortion. I've been a transactional participant in several, but if you're gonna have it, you're gonna have it. But I'm not gonna just like go live my life like I don't have a child out there. And he did. And he kept it from family, which just blows my mind.
Tell me
Especially
about it.
I was so highly of him when I was a kid, and I'm like, you did all that, and then I mean, I'm sure mom has told you what payments were like, non-existent.
Yeah, right.
Which I didn't find that out until a few years ago. I would have assumed he was doing the right thing. And I was like, wow, like none. And she was so I could see how that fuels a lot of her emotions. Yeah, I was very disappointed in how he did all that because, like, I idolized him. I can still smell him if I think about middle school when he would teach me how to wrestle and whatnot. He's the only person to ever knock me unconscious. It
So
wasn't
sweet.
intentional. He was showing me something and ended up like dropping me on my head. And the next thing I knew, I'm like, where am I? And yeah, the only time that I've ever been like that, other than a hospital.
Wow. But yeah, after that happened, so later, this is September-ish. My dad dies in December. This is all happening like we don't know it at the time, but like right before he's about to die. So right after that, I go to brunch with his fiance. She says just enough about his dad that I'm able to find out where his dad lives and what his phone number is. And I just call his dad.
To do what?
I just
Of
call
course, to
him.
meet him, but like,
I just call him and I'm like, hey, I'm your granddaughter. He doesn't pick up, but I leave a voicemail and I'm like, hey, I'm your granddaughter and I live in Virginia. He lives in Upper Marlboro. Like, he does not live far from here. And I was like, hey, I'm your granddaughter. I would love to meet you. I'm right around the corner. He calls my dad to make sure that's true. And then he's like, hey, I would love to meet you. And so we meet. It goes okay. He's older. I don't think he was interested in hearing anything negative about his son.
no.
But
Sure, he
once,
gave him a jaw jacking when he found out, like, you got a 20-some-year-old daughter and you didn't tell me? Like, that's crazy.
I mean, I don't know how their conversation went, but our conversation, our relationship now, as long as we're not talking about my dad, is great. He's a super sweet old man. He's, it seems like he and his wife are so different from mom's parents, like grandma and grandpa. They're definitely not the stereotypical grandma and grandpa. Like mom's parents are, they drank, they cuss, like they're different.
They're
And
not typical though. Like
that's
those
what I mean.
stories are okay.
They're not the stereotypical. These people, like, they're super sweet. They go to church, they bake cookies, like, they seem super traditional. I'll never get to meet my grandmother, and she died without knowing I existed, which is crazy to me.
Hey, she might have been really nasty to you. It might be for the best that she's gone. I want to go back though. You said that our conversations are great as long as they don't involve your dad. But if they do involve your dad, does he get like so defensive he's nasty?
I mean, we haven't really talked about it since that first time. There was something he said the first time we talked about it. Um, that I was like, what is this old man talking about? But he was like, the two of us could be looking at a star, and one of us could think, wow, what a beautiful, bright, gorgeous star. And the other one could think, that's just a ball of gas. And I was like, what is he trying to say? But now I think I get it. Like, to me, my dad could just be a ball of gas. But at the funeral, there were a lot, easily 100 people there.
Mm.
And a lot of them had amazing things to say about him. So even though he wasn't that great to me, he was amazing to a lot of people.
A lot of strangers. Well, that's that's more people than will ever be at my funeral. So he was clearly charming or something.
Right. Do you remember your last conversation with your dad?
Yeah. Um it it was short because I hadn't been paying my student loan, and he went out of his way to get it. Like, despite the fact that we weren't the closest, when mom told me that it was him, or I don't know, the poll, find some way to pay for school that didn't involve her. And I hit him up, and he was real fast. Uh, it was yes, meet me at the bowling alley. We'll get the paperwork signed. And, looking back, that sucks that I didn't, I don't know, own the responsibility that I should have. But it took me almost another decade after he was dead to get to a point where I'm like, now, of course, I would pay it. But, at the time, I don't know where my little money, because I've been poor most of my adult life. I don't know where it was going, what I prioritized, probably drinking for a large portion. But I wasn't paying it. And he was like, when he retired from the military, he got a job at the Pentagon. And he's like, you can't not pay this student loan because that's going to mess with my security clearance. He might as well have told me that he wanted to give money to hungry kids in Zimbabwe. I could give a and I was just like, it is what it is. It's not getting paid. Sorry about that. And that was basically the last time that we spoke.
Mm.
And then he started paying it.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long was that before he died?
I want to say maybe 3 or 4 years before he died.
What?
Yeah. We didn't speak for a while after that.
Wow.
But if you had asked me at any point, because like some girlfriends did, Lauren, she was with me when he died and when I found out that he died. But she was like, "Oh, do you hate your dad?" And I was like, "No, I don't hate my dad. Seems like a good dude. I just don't care." So, as I said, my whole thing was I'll loop back to him, when I've had a kid, and, I'm a dad, look at my son, and then we can figure it out. But tomorrow is never promised today.
That sounds so much like what I thought. So my last conversation with my dad, it's after I had met my grandfather. It feels weird. I don't want to call him grandpa. Like
Because
I
I have one.
right, like grandpa is mom's dad. But after I met with him, um, I felt like, all right, now I know that nobody in my dad's life knows about me. Malcolm still doesn't know. I was going back and forth in my mind, like, do I reach out to Malcolm or not? And I had a lot of questions for my dad. And he's still like, hey, I'm ready to be a good dad now. And I was like, and I was also engaged, planning my wedding, getting ready to buy a house. Like I was very busy. So our last conversation was me being like, kind of two things. One, I'm busy. Like I'm glad you're ready to be a great dad, but I have a lot of stuff going on, and now is not really the best time for me to try to build a bond with you. Like
Wait.
maybe
Did he want to like show you to the whole family and like introduce you?
he didn't say all that, but he did. He just wanted us to spend more time together. And I had a lot to do. And I was like, maybe in May, when the wedding is over, maybe we can try this again. Also, I'm a gigantic secret in your life. I'm not really over that yet because I just learned it. And he and his fiance, to me, it felt like they were saying, it's in the past. You should just get over it. And I was like, is it in the past? Because there are presently people who don't know. And they were like, you're holding on to things. And I'm like, I can't just snap my fingers and be over it.
Where did they get to have that like conversation with you? Like you're holding on to it.
I
I
think a lot of older people have that mindset of like, don't cry over spilled milk. Like the past is the past, get over it. And I was like, I'm not over it. And maybe we shouldn't be talking to each other while I'm still getting over it. Maybe that's not fair to you that, we try to build a relationship while I'm still not over this thing that you did and
you're
are
better than
still
me.
doing technically. So I was like, you know what? Let's just try this again in May. Like, this is too much for me to think about right now. And then a month and a half later, he died.
Hmm.
So, yeah. And I was talking to this about mom. Like, if I knew he was going to die a month and a half later, would I have just gotten over it?
No, you
I
can't
don't,
control your feelings. I just turn them off.
I don't know. I don't think so because I still had to go through the funeral, um,
Hmm.
which was terrible. But I have a question for you first because I'm still a little confused. What happened or didn't happen during your childhood that had you like harboring anger towards your dad in your adulthood?
I think that there are a few things I remember. Um, so I always wanted my mom and dad to get back together. And they tried. I remember we took some trip out to Texas one time and they were trying. Didn't work. I stayed with my dad for a year. He lived in Austin, Texas. And I remember one day I had a conversation with him and I was like, why did you and mom break up? And he said, your mom stopped loving me. Um, Before I get to what mom said, I was supposed to stay there a year. It wasn't exactly a year. I want to say it was a couple or even a few months shy. Mom randomly shows up one day and picks me up. I think she drove, I think. Yeah, back to like Virginia. Long drive.
You do remember this.
I do. Um, my dad, I guess, had called her and he was like, you got to come get him. Can't do it. And I don't think I was a particularly bad kid, but at the same time, like yesterday, my son ruined Easter. So it's very possible that I just tap danced all over his nerves. So I didn't realize right away that she was forced to come get me early at his request. And she was really mad because she, I think, had been working in San Diego and was relocating back to the East Coast, didn't have herself fully situated. I don't know that she had a place to live when he was like, you got to come get him. And tried pleading with him, wasn't working, come get him. So that's one.
Mhm.
The other thing was eventually I was like, how come you stopped loving dad? And she's like, what? And I was like, yeah, like dad told me that you guys aren't together because you stopped loving him. And she's like, is that what he told you? So I might be 8, 9 years old. And she's like, your father cheated on me a lot. And I had to find proof of it. And because I was so young, she's like, one day I will show you that proof if you would like. Again, I'm like 8, 9. I want to say I was home for the summer at 19, going through. You remember that old shrunk that she used to keep in the basement?
Mhm.
The only reason I know what a shrunk is because I've never seen another one again. Armoires, I've seen a couple.
Mhm.
I'm going through there, I think just seeing what I can find. And I see this envelope that has like a spot on the front of it. Right. To this day, I still think that was them juices.
Ew.
I know, but you know how women are, and she probably thought that would be sexy. And I open it and I'm like reading it. It's just a love letter. There's a photo. Um, and I guess he liked him light skin. I don't know because his last wife was dark, but Marion and this woman that he cheated with were both light skinned. And apparently he was cheating with Mary. Nobody's going to know her name because it's a different last name now. So apparently he was cheating with her before he eventually married her. I didn't know that either as a kid. And I remember just sitting there at 19 looking at all this proof and trying to put myself in mom's shoes. Like, man, because she was young, 22, 23 maybe when she found that. And I'm like, man, that would be heartbreaking. So there was that. And that those things combined with, because he lied to me, combined with him and I not really like talking about anything. We both liked video games. That's as far as I think our similarities go. The Venn diagram has one thing in the middle. And yeah, I think that's why.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so, if you could go back, would you change how you approached your relationship with him?
I probably would. Mainly just because, as you mentioned, he committed suicide. I've never had a suicidal thought in my life, and I don't think I will. I'm too self-centered for that. But I would like to, like, part of me goes, he would never have talked to his son, who was late 20s at the time, about these thoughts. I couldn't have made a difference. But at the same time, and I know he had an argument with my other sisters. He didn't like one living with her boyfriend at the time. He might not have liked the boyfriend. So there was plenty more at play than just our relationship. But I feel like that's just one more pebble on top of all these stones that I would remove if I could. And I would hope that maybe things would be okay. Maybe he would talk to me. I don't know. But I think it's very sad that he felt he had nobody, I think, and would make such a permanent decision like that. I feel like people who make a decision like that, like you must think nobody cares, or you want them to hurt when you're gone. And hopefully he was too old for that kind of pettiness. But yeah, what about you?
I don't know. I don't think so at this point. Um, there are times like I was saying before we started recording, my granddad just turned 90 and we went to his 90th birthday party and it was so cute. He just got married at
Oh,
again. His wife is 80. They were so yeah, she wasn't like 20 years old or something. But they're adorable. A lot of his friends are still alive. His older brother is still alive.
oh,
And it was really, really cute to see all of them still alive, still married. Um, and while it was great to still feel included, I wished I could have gotten to grow up and know these people. And I still very much feel like a visitor with their family and not like a member of the family. And so I still sometimes feel that anger with him like, damn, I'm never really going to know these people the same way that Malcolm does.
but you don't know that though, because maybe, he's family, but you don't always like family. Whereas they might love you in 20 years from now. Like, yeah, we found out about her a little late, but now she's part of the gang. We still just tolerate certain people in our family, but you got all the time in the world.
Yeah. I
That dude's
mean,
over 90. Grandma's almost 90. Both sides are apparently trying to touch 100. So you could be 137 years old one day.
that would be amazing. But mainly for them. I wish that we could have had a bond, I guess, more to get to know them. To me, I don't really know much about him. I don't know what I would have gotten out of being closer to him. It seems like in his death, the people that were closer to him than I was are struggling more.
Hmm.
And I don't envy them.
I mean, from what I remember, he was great. I had a lot of happy memories. As a matter of fact, I was probably more angry at mom for throwing away that relationship because I was like, why are you having a kid that the man doesn't want to have? Let's just go back to being happy because they were talking about marriage all the time. I wanted to be just like your father. That's why I wrestled. That's why I wanted to go to University of Maryland College Park. Took me a while to see a different side or the real him, I guess. But yeah, he was great.
I'm glad that you're not just like him.
Me too, because I lied to somebody once and that was no fun. So I have made it a point. Nobody believes you if you say you don't lie. But after I got caught lying to Lauren in 2012, I haven't lied to anybody since.
Wow,
I
that's
know
great.
it's something. But you know what they say about the truth? It will set you free. It will set you free from friendships and employment. Nobody wants to hear the truth.
Hmm. That's an interesting way to look at it, being set free from employment.
And relationship, like if you're too honest, people would rather not be around you.
That's true. A lot of people like lies, whether
Yeah,
they want to admit it or not.
they're like salad dressing of conversation.
That's a great analogy. Okay. So I remember because I think I found out that your dad died before you did.
Mm-hmm.
I was with mom. You know, mom has a big reaction to everything. She's very dramatic.
God.
So I remember very vividly when she got the phone call. I don't remember exactly who it was from. I know it was someone from your family, but when she found out your dad died, the reaction that she had was ridiculous. And then she immediately called you. I don't think she asked you where you were because I believe you were about to perform. And
Just
well,
got right into
why don't
it.
you remind everyone what she said?
So I'm at the DC Improv. I'm the MC. So I start the show and then I bring up the rest of the comics. We're 10 minutes away from showtime on the first show. I think it was a Saturday. And I get this phone call. Normally I wouldn't even answer, but I did. And mom is like, where are you? And I think before I even get a chance to, no, she doesn't ask me where I am. She goes, you need to come home right now. Because at that time I was back in the basement. I had dreams of moving to New York. So I was in the basement, unemployed for 2 years. None of that played out how I thought it would. So I'm home. I can't. Well, you need to come home right now. Again, I can't. And she's like, your father died. And I'm like, okay. And bear in mind, if you can picture it, I'm on the floor, not backstage or anything. I'm on the floor. All the people are being sat down at the comedy show. And I'm just like calm. I took it like I took the time of day. And I'm like, okay. She's like, yeah, he killed himself. Apparently, there was a situation and the cops were there. And then they found him. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, so you need to come home right now. And I was like, I can't, mom. I'm hosting this weekend the DC Improv, and I'm about to go on stage in like 8 minutes. And she's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And she gets off the phone. And like, it was weird because I remember I looked over towards Lauren and she can see me. I don't think that I looked like my world just ended or anything. But as soon as she saw me, she's like, are you okay? And I explained what happened to her. And then I went up, had a totally normal show, crushed it. And when I was done, I come out and I was like, could you tell that like anything was different? And she's like, I could tell. But if I hadn't seen you perform a million times, I don't think that I would have been able to tell. Um, yeah, and that was how I found out.
Wow. I feel like I remember her also saying something to the effect of, so if you were ever gonna like call him back or try to fix your relationship, it's too late now.
I think that there was something thrown in. And this is something I genuinely dislike about mom, but she can't help but do
Say I
that.
told
Like
you so.
anybody listening is like, what kind of a psychopath would say something like that in the same conversation you just told him his dad is dead? But my mom just can't help herself. Like she wants to say, I told you so. Everything is a learning lesson. And yeah,
And she
awful.
had been telling you for a long time, call
She
your
had.
dad, call your dad, call your dad.
And I will never say she was right. And you know, things they happen as they're supposed to. I think that that lesson that I'll have to just carry around for the rest of my life might have been something that I needed.
Yeah.
Where were you when you found out that your dad was dead?
I was on a Zoom call Wednesday every morning. My job does a Zoom call, like a staff meeting every morning. And I kept getting the same call over and over, and my voicemail box was full. So they couldn't leave a voicemail. And after the call was over, I called her back. It was my grandpa's fiance at the time. They weren't married yet.
Did she not text?
No, they're not like grandma. They're like real old people. And and she was like, "Hey, I have some bad news for you. Your dad passed away last night. Um, the funeral is going to be in a week. Maria will call you more, like with more details later." And I was like, "Okay." And then I hung up, and then I immediately started crying, which I did not expect. I think because all of the emotions of our last conversation were just coming back to the surface. After our last conversation, I also like burst into tears as soon as we got into the car. And like I had intentionally planned a bunch of fun things to do after that lunch because I knew it wasn't going to go well. And um yeah, I don't know. And then we had to do the funeral. How was your dad's funeral?
uh, I've only been to, and again, I'm almost 40. I've only been to like two or three in my life, his being one. I think that it was nice. I think him and grandpa and a friend of mine, Dennis, in high school. But that was actually the first time that I got emotional. Up until that point, I knew it was real, but I hadn't allowed for any emotion to come out. And yeah, I was surprised at how hard it hit me that day.
At your dad? You cried at grandpa's funeral.
Oh yeah. I mean, I always loved Grandpa. He and I had a weird time, and I don't even know if I've shared with you all the stuff in Chicago when I would spend summers with him, and like I was on the road with him when he was a truck driver. Um, he slapped me, and he's the reason that I chew with my mouth closed.
What?
I've never told you that
No.
because we had just hit the road, and I was eating something, having a good old time, talking with my mouth open, full of food, and he was just like, "You chew with your mouth closed." Never had to tell me again. He and my dad gave me a slap that changed my life. His keeps my mouth closed when I chew. My dad's is why I drink after I'm done eating, because I had run through like 7 or 8 Capri Suns, and I was like getting ready to go for another. Eat your food first. And now, almost religiously, I do not touch my drink until I'm done with my food. Some people might have sympathy for me or something. Don't, because my drink has now become this reward for getting through my meal. And I look at both of those slaps with love looking back.
That sounds very Stockholm syndrome but
I guess, but even right after them, but I also look back on my spankings with love. Like I loved kind of how I grew up. Um, Going back to grandpa real quick though, yeah, Chicago, like he would take me along on his escapades. Did you know that?
I did not know that. I'm glad, in some ways, I'm glad I was the youngest and that I was not taken on all of these adventures. But in other ways, I'm jealous. I feel like you had a much more exciting childhood.
You should be. I don't want to go forever, but I do want to give you this story of grandpa. He was cheating with this woman who lived in a farm, and you had to drive through like miles of wheat to get to wherever she lived. So we had been out with her son for like a day, and we're driving them back. I forget how the conversation got here, But she goes, "You don't talk to me like that in front of him," pointing back to her son who's next to me playing in the back seat. And grandpa is like, "Well, you and him can get the fuck out of my car." And he stopped in the middle of this wheat field and he let them out. And then we just carried on with the rest of our day. I think we went to KFC after that. And I had hot wings. They were wonderful. I'll save the part where the woman he was seeing, she was the ugliest, sweetest woman in the world. Her name started with an E. Let's call her Evelyn. She crept into my bed the middle of that night. She crept into my room in the middle of that night. And she's like, "Hey, where were you and your grandpa today?" And I was like, "We went to Kentucky Fried Chicken after we went and played at the pool hall." She was like, "Oh, okay." Leaves the room. The door opens again 10 minutes later. This time it's grandpa. "Hey, what'd she ask you?" "She asked me what we did today." "What'd you tell her?" "Told her that you got me KFC and we went to the pool hall." "My man." And then he left my room.
Oh my God. Your life sounds like it would be such a fun book or such a
If you
fun
were a
TV
little older, you'd have been right there with me.
show. Okay. So the funeral was pretty standard though. Everybody knew you existed. So you probably had a standard funeral experience.
I don't think that our experiences would be too different. We'll find out in a moment, but I don't feel any closeness to his side of the family. Since he's died, a lot more of those relatives have tried to reach out to me. But for those of you listening, I am not a social person and I don't really want new friends. Like, no new friends. That might as well be tattooed on me somewhere because I'm good. I don't want more family. Got them. And so, yeah, I mean, I've met up with them a couple of times since he died, but for the most part, no, thank you. I do see one of the sisters more than any of them. I don't like feeling like I'm supposed to be a replacement for anybody's father, but I think because she is the oldest of them, I think she's just looking for some connection to him. Maybe since I'm the oldest, I don't know. It's a weird dynamic, but I didn't feel like a total stranger at that funeral because of the fact that I kind of looked like him. But at the same time, like, you don't know me, I don't know you. I'm just here. If it weren't for the fact that Lauren was sitting next to me, I think I would have been very uncomfortable. Um, yeah, because most of them I felt like I was meeting for the first time. But what about you? How was your father's funeral?
It sucked. So, um, so his family has been great. Probably better than most people would expect because nobody knew about me. And then here's this random 25-year-old girl that is like, "Hey, he's my dad." And nobody was like, "Let me see some papers, let me see a paternity test."
It's right there in your face.
I mean, I guess, but it's not like I look exactly like him. There's
Nah, the
enough.
cheeks. That's him all day.
At the funeral, there were a lot of people who were like, "Who are you?" And I was sitting in the front. Malcolm wasn't there, or he was late. He showed up late. So there's
How late?
I did not see him, but he said that he came in late at some point, was there for like 10, 15 minutes, and then he left. So for the most part, no one saw him. But yeah, so there's his empty seat, but then it's his dad, his fiance, his sister, an empty seat, and me. And so everybody is like, "Who is that girl?" Like everybody knows who everyone else is, but the whole time people are looking at me like, "Who is that?" People are going up, eulogizing him, saying how great of a person he was, and are
She
giving
rolled her eyes. You can't see it.
people are going up, eulogizing him and saying he's so wonderful, and then they're giving their condolences to everybody. They're giving their condolences to Malcolm, and he's not even there. And then they're like, "And to the rest of you, I hope you're doing okay." People are walking up to me like, "Who are you?" And it was so uncomfortable because I'm trying to figure out how do I even feel about this guy. And there's people in my face, like basically, what right do you have to be sitting in the front row at his funeral? Like, who are you, random stranger? And it was
You had no
overwhelming. I
attitude
also,
to give back?
hmm?
Like, I know everybody's like hurting in that moment, but did you give them the same energy that they gave you?
I
Or
was just like, that's my dad. He's my dad. And I wasn't trying to argue with people. There were some people that were rattling names off, like, oh, are you Catherine's daughter? Are you June's daughter? Who's, and I was like, no, no, no. You're getting warmer. But um I hate open casket funerals. I wish I hadn't looked at his body. I will never do that again. But we got there very early. And so
I mean,
I
did he
went
just
in.
not look like himself?
He did, but just looking at someone's dead body, I just don't like it. I wish I hadn't looked. And people like go in and they touch and all of that. I don't like that. So
Not doing that. But I'm shocked at you because you're like the horror fan of the millennia. And
horror movies and a dead body in real life are not the same thing.
no, they're not. They're not. But you never watched actual like gory videos?
No.
Oh, I thought you had taken it to the next level.
What? No. No. And definitely not for my dad.
No, that's
No. So, but I think then they cremated him later. But I don't know. I wasn't part of any of the planning of that, but it was just very uncomfortable. And I know, like, when it's weird to think about, but like when mom dies, everyone's gonna know she has two children and that we're her children. And I don't know.
I
It'll
mean,
be
she would
so,
never try to keep a secret. Like,
it's weird to think about, like, especially that year, everybody knows my mom has a daughter. And everybody who talked to that year probably knew, oh, Sherry has a daughter who's getting married.
that's definitely true.
And so it was even weirder to be like the secret that nobody knew about, and to feel like, I don't know, like I don't know how you can say you love someone but also never tell anybody else in your life about them. It just really made me question my relationship with him, the one that we barely had.
I mean,
And
keeping you a secret's a horrible thing to do. I don't harbor any bad feelings for your father, but that's a horrible thing. Like, that is some scumbag shit. However, hopefully, in the grand scale of life, I'm not religious. If everybody else is, right on. But hopefully, he had a lot more good in his life than the bad. But that's unforgivable. But I'm glad that you were able to try.
I'm trying. And mom, she did the same thing with me that she did with you. She was always like, call your dad, try to fix it. I think because when her dad died, they, kind of had unfinished business too. And she wished she had gotten over it. And one thing she always told me growing up was like, people love you the best way that they know how. They're not normally trying to emotionally scar you and
Hmm.
just destroy your life. And if they're a shitty dad, then that's what they are, but they're normally not trying to be that. And sometimes their best isn't good enough, but people are normally doing the best that they can. And so his best was keeping my existence between me, him, and my mom. But I mean, I
I
don't
mean,
know.
his best was probably the love that he spoke of, but I don't know what led him down the road of trying to keep that a secret, because it's a secret nobody really gets to keep. You hope that you die before people know, but they were gonna know. Life finds a way. Um, yeah. If anything, that would have been the only thing that I would have wanted to talk to him about, just to get some perspective. Like, what were you thinking? Maybe you could ask his fiance, but he probably didn't talk to her a lot about it. Because as a guy, I know that when something brings you great shame, you rarely share it with the person that you love.
Why is that?
I don't, but something like that. It's kind of like when it comes time for me to bring up the worst parts of my life in a relationship. That's not an easy conversation. Um, so let's just say the whole jail thing. That's not a fun conversation to have. It's all love, but now you have to accept like who I really am. And yeah, it's a conversation I put off until I'm certain, all right, this is something, but I'm not giving that to you right away. And I assume that in some way he thought it would be better if I just say nothing. I don't know if he thought that would help somebody's feelings or because he was still married or I don't know. And then he just kept it going. And I do know how that feels to try to keep a lie going. No fun.
Yeah, I'll never know what the real reason was. What he said when I asked him the last time I talked to him was, I'm just not that close to my family. And
And
I
he
was
might have meant that.
I'm like, you haven't been that close to them for 25 years. It never came up. He was like, no.
Now, his father might think differently of that. Like, well, I didn't think we were strangers, but it's like, I'm not that close. I speak to you, mom, and grandma sporadically. And sadly, most of the time it's because they call me. Not that I'm not thinking of them. I just,
I
life
think that's
gets in the way.
okay.
But yeah, so I can understand that. Not about a daughter, but I could understand that like a dog. Like when I get a dog soon being in the next couple of years, uh, I can't imagine I'm going to be making phone calls and telling you guys like we just got a poodle.
Yeah, I don't know what the reason was. And one thing I do wish I had done, I wish that I had reached out to Malcolm while my dad was still alive. I was in therapy at the time, and my therapist was actually the one who talked me out of it. And because she was like, if you want to salvage any the chance of having a relationship with your dad, let's not make him more upset. Like he's probably not thrilled that you called his dad and went behind his back. Just try to talk to your dad beforehand and see if you guys can go to Malcolm together. And that's not how the conversation went. The A lot of our conversation was him honestly throwing mom under the bus. And I don't want to be angry. That was the other thing that I think about a lot when I think about the grieving process. Like he's dead. So being angry at a dead person really only hurts me. Like he's not going to know about it. It's not going to affect him. It's only going to negatively affect me and the relationships with the people that I have. So I don't want to harbor anger towards him. But it doesn't feel like it's that old. Like it happened a year and some change ago. But I do want to get over it. Um, do you feel like you really grieved his death? Like, what did the grieving process look like for you?
I don't think I did. Uh, like let's say in the last 6 months, and I don't know why, but it was like right around January. And maybe it's because when the holidays come, like there's his birthday, even though I don't know the day. And then there's Christmas, and I like to go crazy, kind of like mom used to when I was a kid. And at some point around like mid-January, I just started getting so emotional. And like anything that has a father in a movie or on television, if he's good, if he's bad, I find myself just like weeping. My shoulders don't move, but the tears are falling down my face. And I remember at one point, and I wish I could remember the movie, Marty was like, "Oh, don't worry, you're a great dad." And I was like, "I know that. These aren't for me. These are for my father." But I think only now can I really like start to process it, which is what I was going to say to you. One, these people, old people who are telling you like get rid of the anger. That's what a lot of people try to tell me now. I think I'm a lot angrier than you. But it's not that easy. But with time, you forget all the little specifics about why you were angry. Like, I know that there are two people that I hate in this world. One of them, someone I used to date. Now, people tell me, like, let it go. And I'm like, no, because that person did some genuinely foul shit to me. And I await the news of her death. Not that
Devin, that's
I'm not
not
gonna
good.
pay for it. I'm just saying, if she trips and breaks her neck, that's good stuff.
No.
Because that person went way out of their way to run my name through all the feces. And for over a year, I had people running to me and telling me what was being said. And I said, I don't want to hear another word unless it's news of her demise. So you can keep all the trash talk to yourself, every podcast appearance, all that. When she's dead, let me know. And I'll celebrate. I'll smile. I'll kick my feet up. I might shimmy
Devin, that's not
because
good.
she's got it coming. But
Uh,
that's not a hatred like I dwell on. I don't stay up rubbing my hands like, yeah, drop dead. But when that time comes, I'll be like, that's what you get. But that hate doesn't like run my life. It doesn't consume me. And the same kind of goes for the other guy. It's like once every like 5, 6 months, I'll think on them and I'll go, nah, I really hope you get what you deserve. But I've got too much going on to really dwell on it. Now, it's different if we're talking about fathers, but I think in time, especially once you get pregnant and all that, I think that you'll find some way to have peace, but nothing can change what he did. Hopefully, there's a lesson to be learned. I can't tell you what it is. Maybe mom can from that whole thing.
she can always find a lesson.
If you let her talk long enough, there's a jewel in there. But as far as my anger, I'm just really angry myself. And I've had to learn to not dwell on what I can't change. I really wish I could, but
Yeah. So now that you're a father, how has your relationship with your dad impacted how you want to be a father to Liam?
ooh, if he hadn't been such a pain in the butt yesterday, I would have a very like nice answer. So he ruined Easter. So I'll
How?
say how. It was a great day. We went and saw Super Mario Brothers. He got this nice basket and all this stuff. And we get home. It's time to take your bath. We do this every day. I ask him to take his clothes off. He decides that that's where he's going to take a stand. Doesn't want to take his clothes off. And eventually, like I get tired of repeating myself. So I took the tablet from him, which sometimes he'll want to take into the bathroom. And I was like, nah, not today. That's for good boys. And then he just basically screamed about his tablet for about a half an hour. And it just disrupted the whole dynamic of everybody because then Marty starts like trying to take his side, which just enraged me even further. But I'm the disciplinarian. Um, since my dad and I had no relationship, I've often told myself that I want my son and I to be close. I guess something similar to you and mom. Um, like you guys, you like being around each other.
Mom is one of my best friends. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, I don't want to be that close, but I do want to be close enough that like he knows me, he likes me, and he can let me do my thing. Kind of like grandma and I. No
Mhm.
grandma, like her. I'll talk to you when I talk to you, but if you would run into this, if you would ask me about her, I would have great things to say, especially because she treats strangers better than family sometimes. So I'd be like, she would love you. She's a constant, what's that word? Contrarian if I'm involved. But now, I catch myself though, in times like last night, I was really mad. And I told him that a trip to somewhere he wants to go is canceled. I'm like, don't even bring that up. I don't want to hear about it. Maybe next year, because you need a whole year of being good to make up for this tantrum. He's almost 5 years old, and he threw a tantrum like he was 2. So in moments like that, I think I stopped caring about whether or not he likes me. And I'm like, I just have to turn you into a good person. And if you want to hate me, then I'll have you be better in spite of me. I think that those thoughts are rare. So I'm hoping that as he continues to get older and learn who I am, that as he's growing, we can find some nice balance. Because I'm like, I don't have, well, like, you're a kid. We're not asking you for anything. But, it's weird. I often think of Grandpa. Every time that I would call him when I was a little kid, he would always go, "Hey, little fella." And I think about that like 3-4 times a week. Don't know why, but I do. Especially like when I'm with Liam and I'm like, man, it's crazy how time passes. Like, I'm 40. I could die of natural causes 5 years from now because I'm old.
That's not old enough to die of natural causes.
Like, here you are, a grown woman talking to me, married in your house. And I remember the little kid that I would practice wrestling moves on while mom had me babysitting. And you would laugh your ass off while I power bombed you to the best of my, like, I would be trying to drive you through the bed and you couldn't have loved it more. And now here you are. So I think I'm just like super reflective of beginning to get old. But where are you at with your anger?
I I'm not an angry person, and I am trying not to be angry with him. And most moments I would say that I'm not. But when I really think about it, I'm like, I have every right to be angry with him. Like, that was just terrible. There's really not a way to defend that. Um, I can't think of an explanation for it. And I've heard like allusions to some big problem in his past for maybe why he hasn't told his parents, but that doesn't really explain like his friends and literally everybody else in his life. So I still don't get it. I try not to think about it too much, and I don't want my feelings about it to impact my ability to build a relationship with his dad. And like, he had a lot of cousins. His dad is kind of like grandpa. He had like 7 or 8 siblings.
Oh, for a second, I thought you meant like Grandpa's personality. I was like, I thought they were
No.
better than that.
No, he's very different from grandpa in that way, but he had a ton of siblings, so there's a lot of cousins. Um, and they are mainly in like Charlotte, and a lot of them moved up to Maryland. So there's a lot of people around here. Um, so there's a lot of people to get to know, and I don't want to like avoid getting to know them or let my ability to get to know them be damaged by my feeling towards my dad. Or even getting to know my dad's fiance. She's so nice. She's such a good person. A really, really good person. Too good of a person,
You say her
almost.
name is on that lease, though?
I think so, yeah.
And
And
imagine what that payment is.
I cannot imagine either. But yeah, so I'm trying to not hold on to that because I do want to move forward, and I don't see what the use of it is. It was wrong, and I don't see the problem in acknowledging that it's wrong and bringing up that it's wrong whenever it comes up. But I also don't necessarily want to like hope that my dad is in hell or like, I don't know, hope that he's experiencing eternal like torture. I don't necessarily feel that. Um,
So, do any of them bring it up? I know that they're all still really defensive because it's only been a year. Does anybody ask you how you feel about that?
no.
Okay.
They're
Which,
more. Hmm?
It's a smart move if you don't want to hear him get dragged through the mud.
Yeah, I think they're more of the like, we're happy you're here. We're happy you're part of the family. Let's move forward, type of mindset. And I think that's a good way to go. So,
It's
yeah,
not
I don't,
bad, but I think if you never address it, then it's almost like swept under the rug, like it was no big deal. Hopefully, with more time, as they get to know you a whole lot better and you get to know them, I hope that they'll be receptive to letting you just vomit your thoughts for a little bit.
I mean, I've talked about it with Maria, my dad's fiance. I've talked about it with Malcolm, which went interestingly. And I talked about it with my granddad, also went interestingly. And I mean, everybody else, I mean, they're cousins. Like, if your dad had a secret kid
He
and
did.
they were like, I want answers about it, you would be like, that's not my problem. Like, why do I have to answer for him? So I don't necessarily expect them to like make me feel better about it. Um, Meeting Malcolm was interesting. He doesn't have any other siblings. So it's got to be a big jump. He was 32 to think you're an only child for your whole entire life to learn like, oh my God, there's another one. Because to me, like I've had a brother my whole life. Having another brother is not that big of a deal. I also always knew he existed.
True.
So to me, it was not that serious. But I think for him, like, oh my God, there's another child was probably a bigger deal. Um,
Does he look anything like you? Does he look just like his dad?
he does, I think in here, definitely I see similarity.
Does he have those ears too?
I don't know. I never noticed.
I remember your dad had like the smallest ears.
Um, yeah, so I don't want to be angry going forward. And think it sucks that my husband, his dad passed away in 2020. So our kids aren't gonna have any grandfathers, no grandpas.
Oh yeah, you're right. I was gonna say his dad, but I'm like, oh, that's great grandpa.
Yeah. Yep. So
At least
no
they'll
grand
get to know one of those though. Most people, it seems, don't even get to meet their great grandparents.
Yeah, I guess that's true. So hopefully grandma holds on because I'm not having a kid tomorrow. So
I think she's got at least, I think she's got a decade in her.
I think so. I think grandma could make it to 100.
She might, and that would just be further proof. Like you can treat your body like an amusement park and somehow stay on this ride.
Yeah, is it how you treat it? Is it how you treat other people? Because she's a really good person.
She is, because she is a doormat for some, which is weird because if the listeners, has Grandma been on this podcast?
Yeah, she has.
Okay, so they got a taste, and I'll bet she was probably on her best behavior. But
Yeah, she was very
yeah,
different.
if you really met our grandma and you were family, because again, she's great to strangers, then you would see what she can really be like. And it's so weird to think that anybody could take advantage of her or just walk all over her, but some people have.
For sure. Oh, other thing about parenting. I'm not a dad, so like how I want to I
Not
can't
yet, you're not.
I can't father my children. And to me, I guess I talked about this when I recorded with Malcolm. I'm excited to have a dad in the house when whenever I have children. That'll be a big step up already. But and I mean, you weren't like a dad to me because even though you're 13
I mean,
years
I was
older,
gone as soon as you were like five.
right?
So yeah.
That too. I mean, it was different. You were like a brother, uncle, brother, brunkle, and grandpa was more like a dad to
I can
me.
see that.
It'll be nice to have a dad in the house, and it sounds like a low bar, but it'll be nice that everybody will know that my husband has children. Like I know that when we have kids, he will be loud and proud about our children, which is pretty baseline.
I totally understand where you're coming from, though. We didn't grow up in a two-parent household, and I don't think there's better or worse because mom is a hero. But it does feel interesting being married with a child. You'll probably have a bigger family than we do because I
Only
had
by
a
one.
vasectomy by one, unless you have triplets on the first go.
No.
But yeah, I feel he'll never know because he didn't have to grow up like me and want it. But I guess it's kind of like how I feel you probably don't think much about single family homes because you grew up in them. I grew up in apartments and then our townhouse. So I think when we get our home, single family home, that'll be like this huge deal to me because I didn't ever have it. And he can't appreciate not having had a father around. But I do think that we, you and I, are going to have this great appreciation for it. And hopefully all goes well and our fairy tales just cruise for the next 50, 60.
Yeah, I hope so. I think that's a really good point. This was a really great conversation. I
I had
appreciate,
fun.
yeah, I appreciate you taking the time to talk about it and to keep it lighthearted. The first attempt at this was very, very serious. Um,
Very serious subject matter. But
yeah,
yeah, even though I'm sure that we both had a lot of emotions for the last however long, but no, it's good though to think about them. Like I don't know if you think about him every day. I don't think I think about my dad every day, but I do think about him probably 3 or 4 days of the week.
yeah, I think about him often, probably more often than when he was alive, which is
Yeah,
sad.
it is sad.
Yeah, well, um,
No, I mean we're in the same boat. It's just sad because like how often did I think of my dad before? Maybe once a month.
no, well, he wasn't around like that.
Yeah.
But can you give us a book recommendation or a recommendation of some other kind of media?
Well, I would say if you are a fan of the movie Fight Club, even though these are a little different. Oh, I thought I had the sequel here, and I was going to pull it out and be like, boom, but I still have the first one right there. There is a trilogy, and I don't know if anybody knows that. So I would recommend Fight Club. I forget the title of the second and third. They're not two and three, but I would look into that. They were pretty cheap on Amazon. I know you didn't think I read. Sometimes I read every now and again.
I did not know Fight Club was a book.
Oh, book first, yeah.
Yeah.
And at some point, maybe we'll get sequel movies, but it's just it madness. So maybe they won't because some stuff is too weird.
Mm. So you're recommending the sequel to the book.
I am.
Okay, great. And last question, what is your
Wait, you
dream
don't
for
recommend a book?
every time? Right now, right now I'm rereading the Percy Jackson and the Olympians books. They're middle schooler books,
All right.
but yeah, I'm in grad school and they are like good good breaks from the grad school level reading. They're great. Like the concept is so good and they ruin the movie so
The first one?
terribly. Hmm?
The first one.
Yeah, I think they made movies for the first and the second book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, terrible.
I never saw the second one. I didn't mind the first one though. I just by the time they got around to the second one, like 3 years or four had passed, and I was like, who cares? But
Did
they
you read
still
the
have
book?
no, I don't read like that. Or
Okay.
I didn't read like that. Um,
Well,
2012 changed that. But they also have a new Disney Plus show. So
I think the show is going to be good because the author is in on it, but the book, or the movie, the kids were too old. It was like sex-ish. I'm like, why is there sex? They should, first of all, they should be 12. Why is this kid 17? that ruins the chance for there to be later books because it should all be leading up to him turning 16. So the fact that he's 17 in the first one doesn't even make any sense. The changes were dumb. It was dumb, bad, terrible, stupid. They took characters out, dumb, stupid, bad. So don't watch the movie, but definitely read the books
You know
and
what? I'll
watch.
agree with you.
Yeah.
Even though I haven't read it, if Danielle says read it, don't watch it, it just makes sense. She
Yes.
reads a lot, like superhuman level reading. But
I thought. But then when you when you look at like Instagram, there's like a whole bookstagram part of Instagram. Those people read like 70 books a year.
ugh.
I can't do that.
So if you don't watch any entertainment, I think that you could definitely run through everything. Everybody's in their phone or watching televisions. They're reading a book.
Well, how am I gonna watch Love is Blind and things like that
I
if I
hate
can't?
that that's a priority, but I also am a slave to Love is Blind.
Anyways, last question. Can you tell us what is your dream for your life's work?
I think my son is going to be my life's work. And my goal is that he be happy. I know that it's not my life, it's his, but if I would love it if he got either some like making a lot of money, something like executive. However, he seems to really love statues, and I'm hoping that that's going to be like an architect kind of path, and that I will help guide him down because I wanted him to code. But I hope that when I look back on him and my grandchildren and whatnot, that everything feels very like full circle because I started out so rough in my 20s and early 30s. If I can like repair this, my life was a flaming sailboat that everybody was jumping off because you're going to drown. And we patched it. I think I've reinforced everything and it's so much better than it ever was. So I just want to continue that and see what kind of wealth I can build. I'm investing now. I know. What about you?
What? No, that's not a question that I answer.
I know. That's why I asked. But eventually she's going to say, I'm not going to put you on the spot now, but eventually you are going to have to give your dream and let people know.
It
Are you afraid to
changes
say
all
it
the
because
time.
if it changes and then you feel like you pivoted or let somebody down, that doesn't matter.
It changes. Right now, I guess in like a meta sense, it would be like to be happy. But more specifically, like career wise, I do want to continue with counseling long, long, long into the future. I really do like interviewing people. I do like talking with people, and I would love to do that for money. I just don't really know how to do that. And I would love to write for money, like write for TV for money. Yeah. And I do want to have a family. I do want to move away from this area and see the world more. And yeah, I just generally want to like be healthy and have good people around me and yeah, feel happy with where I am in my life.
Having good people around, I think, almost leads to happiness.
Yeah.
They're not necessary to have happiness, but yeah. And anybody bringing that bad stuff, give them a little space to breathe. They can come back.
Yeah. But it was really, really good to see you and talk to you.
It was a pleasure. We haven't video chatted ever, and but I hate video chat. Uh,
Why?
I don't know. Mostly like at work, everybody's always looking at everybody else's like thumbnails. And if I'm like eating a sandwich or something, I don't need you to see me do that. As far as phone calls go, I used to think this would be cool in the future, but now I'm like, nah, just text me, man. Um, but no, this was a lot of fun, and it was good to just think about our fathers, especially well, we both met each other's fathers, but it was good because I hadn't really given both of them a lot of thought in a long time. But yeah, and getting to talk to you again, I can see a little bit of a guest room all right now.
Yeah, this is my office. We don't have a guest room.
No,
If
it's your
you,
office.
yeah, ever want to come visit, book a hotel because we do not have a guest room.
I thought you were going to say you're sleeping in my office, but yes, booking a hotel where it's much cheaper. Thank goodness.
Yeah. Or stay at mom's.
Or do that, whichever. I don't know which sounds better actually, but I am going to be there in June, so
Yeah, that'll
yeah.
be great. But where can people find you on the internet?
I am at Tyler Richardson, but the L is the number one. That's on Twitter, Instagram. I don't tweet. I haven't tweeted in over a decade. I don't really post on Instagram, but I do a lot of stories and have fun with those. But I've kind of gotten out of the social media stuff. But if anybody hears this and thinks that they want some of that, by all means.
Cool. Well, everyone, please go follow Tyler, read the Fight Club sequel.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I hope that this episode brought you some joy. It definitely brought me some. I'll talk to you all at some point. I have no promises for an episode in the future. I'm in school and I'm busy, but I appreciate you for listening to this one. Bye.
Bye.